When did USAID actually start doing this effort specifically for LGBT people?
Well, USA started doing trainings with talking about LGBT inclusion in the workplace and our programming. Actually, in the summer of 2013, we launched an online training session for staff where they were able to take an online course to really understand all of the terminology that should be used with the community, as well as talk about some of the programming efforts that had already been underway to include the LGBTI community. And then probably about 6 months after that, the summer of 2013, we started to do these trainings at missions and in our bureaus and offices in person as part of facilitated discussions and trainings. We found that we could really reach a lot more people by doing these in-person trainings and that they were a lot more meaningful. So in addition to facilitating discussions among staff, we could also bring in local advocates to talk about the local context of what they were facing and really being able to provide a viewpoint from the local context so that staff could really have a better understanding in terms of when they would start engaging in the programming part of the inclusion work.
But in your effort in the Philippines, for instance, the beneficiaries, the people you invited are actually not only from USAID, but the partner organizations as well?
Yeah. So with the President's executive order from last summer that extended sexual orientation and gender identity to the non-discrimination policies, the President also extended that to federal contractors. And so they are also part of the work that we're doing, and we wanted to make sure that they had an understanding of the workplace expectations for working with their own LGBTI employees in terms of making sure that there are non-discrimination efforts. But really, we also wanted to make sure that they're part of the conversation that we're having with our own staff in terms of LGBTI inclusion in our programming, because they're the ones that are helping us to really do our work in the countries where we are. And as part of that, we want to make sure that they have an understanding of what it means to really be inclusive with the LGBTI community.
As we try to implement more pro-LGBT, more pro-equal rights policies within the projects of USAID, do we have monitoring and evaluation practices in place already to ensure that these are actually put into place?
Well, some of that monitoring and evaluation is being evolved now, but there is, we have some really great templates from the gender community in terms of how to do that. And so being able to use those templates, but also modify and adopt them specifically for the LGBTI work that we're doing. So while there aren't any standard templates in terms of monitoring and evaluations, I think from these trainings, people have a better understanding of what it means to support the community, and they can start in small ways being able to integrate that already into the monitoring and evaluation work that they're doing as we develop more concrete tools to do that.
What about the continuity of the pro-LGBT efforts? President Obama's term is going to end in 2016. Are we actually already looking into that as well?
Yeah, so even though the president has obviously made a commitment to the global LGBTI community in terms of the U.S. government engagement, I think USAID has really wanting to include this in all of its work, and it goes beyond this administration. So USAID's efforts are part of the larger inclusive development agenda, where we have to make sure that we are reaching out to the most vulnerable populations. So that is inclusive of gender, of disabilities, of indigenous populations, and LGBTI populations. And so we know that in order to really make sure that we meet our goal to end extreme poverty, that those most vulnerable populations have to be part of the work that we do, because those are where we're going to really make the most gains to eliminate and end extreme poverty. And so I think you'll see even beyond this administration, hopefully a continued commitment to that larger inclusive development agenda where the LGBTI community is a major part of that.
And lastly, what more should we be expecting as far as this line of effort from USAID is concerned?
Well, I think we're going to be focusing a lot more on making sure that we're getting out research and data so that we can better put together programming that is really supportive of the LGBTI community. So on the horizon, looking for ways that more reports that are going to be coming out in terms of highlighting the issues facing the communities in the countries where we work, and how we can give guidance, how that can give guidance to the development of programming in these efforts. I think you'll continue to see lots more partnerships with other organizations, both locally and on the ground, but also in the international development community. We have a great partnership with the UN Development Program in terms of the Being LGBT in Asia program. We've had some great partnerships as part of the LGBT Global Development Partnerships. And so really we know that we can't do this work alone, that it takes partners, some in very unlikely places, to come up with the development solutions to support the community. And so being able to do that a lot in partnership with others.